Good afternoon, everybody. So who knows what is the Beagle? Or who doesn't know what is the Beagle? Everybody knows the Beagle voyage. So today we're going to talk about a voyage in the banking ecosystem, looking at the environmental changes that have been brought up by the digital age. So we're going to see how banks started a few years ago, and then where some of them still stand, which is the open banking phase, and then how some of them are actually getting leaner and more agile, to some of them actually making money with a product in the API space, and finally some of them having built a platform. So these are different stages, and this is the analogy I'm going to use all around the speaker. So I was introduced, work at Axway. So Axway, we built software for companies and governments to build platforms for their B2B ecosystem. And I'm in charge of the APIs and data integration there. So I was banking in the 2000s. That was cool, easy. There was a lot of food because a 6% interest rate made fish abundant. You didn't have to work a lot to attract them. You would have a lot of fun, and you were fit for that environment at that time. So let's talk about fitness. In terms of agility, you didn't need to be flying or even running. In terms of customer acquisition, you just needed to pick them. You didn't need to service them, but you were fit for purpose. Now, culturally, you were flocking, so there was no need for innovation, just looking at what others were doing and just doing the same thing. And you were pretty closed, not trying to innovate and cooperate with other species. Now, what about the clients? Us. So we were analog clients. Very low expectation. We just wanted to not be eaten by others, and we wanted to eat. We didn't communicate between us about our financial dreams and horizons projects, and we were uninformed because of our limited senses. So that's back then. Now, this is the digital client. We're having fun. We want simple experiences. We're volatile. We pick stuff. We're smart. We care about our financial fitness for ourselves, our kids, our grandsons, and forever we think about the future. And we communicate. We're social. So as you imagine, these guys are no longer fit for that species. So let's talk about what happened. Well, it's pretty much like the environmental change. The digital age is something that happened over the past 30 years, whereby the temperature has actually gone hot for lots of traditional good old players. And we can say that most of this come from one thing, which is the rise of APIs. If you compare the growth of APIs and the growth of CO2, you can actually bring an analogy where APIs are actually creating a market where digital assets from different companies can be compared, selected, like species. And same thing with the CO2. The more you have CO2, the more the temperature is going to raise for global warming. So APIs and the adoption of APIs is an indicator of the digital age. Same way CO2 is to global warming. Big difference. Global warming is bad. APIs is good. So, but I still made the analogy. So we're going to have a lot of talk about neobanks after that, so I'm not going to cover them. But you can think that in this new environment that's warmer with different species, some new species came. I'm thinking about neobanks like Monzo, Revolut, number 26, but also Bigger ones, bigger cats like Iden or Stripe or others, they are fit for purpose, excellent at targeting a market and being very good at it. So this is a new species that happened when an environment changed, new species appear. Then you have species that already existed and evolved. For example, the telco market, everybody knows about the M-Pesa case by Vodafone. Yeah, so to help people in Kenya to start become banked. So they really helped with financial inclusion by leveraging their infrastructure to give banking to people. And Orange did the same thing in Africa and Eastern Europe. Now let's talk about the tech giants. So same thing, existing species that have come to the new environment because of the rise of temperature. And here we're going to go fast about what happened this year in this environment for banks. So last time we saw each other, we were talking about Google, Apple, Facebook going into pay. We didn't talk much about WeChat and Alibaba. Since then, we've seen that Facebook has actually created an ecosystem of companies to create a cryptocurrency that would bank or equip 2.2 billion people, which is a massive competition to our central banks. We've seen also Facebook create 124 patents in wealth management. Yeah, Facebook cares about your financial fitness. We've seen Apple this year go into financial wellness with MasterCard and Goldman Sachs. And the big difference is that these are not species, these are ecosystems. They are not competing in the jungle, they are the jungle. So this is a big difference between being a company and being a platform. And this is what lots of companies are trying to create. So it goes on. Google Bank, just recently, so we have bank accounts by Google. Now Google in insurance, so they had Nest. They had invested $325 million in Oscar, which is a health insurance company, and they just acquired Fitbit. So think about all the data they're going to have so that they can propose a very well-designed insurance product to each of us that's going to be cheaper and better. Well, beware, insurers. And now I want to have a look into China with those two tech giants. So those companies actually found an opportunity with red envelopes, which are presents you exchange for the new year. And thanks to that angle, they managed to capture more than 90% of the mobile payments in China. So if you're a bank in China, forget about payment. It's over. There is no food anymore. So knowing that, some companies stay in denial. Some companies just want to ignore the situation. But I don't think there are that many now because most people are aware of what's going on in terms of new entrants, new species coming in to be fed out of what they consider to be their food. But we'll still have some extinct species in banking in the next 5 to 10 years. They will probably be on the red list of banking. We'll talk about it probably here in 10 years. And that's unfortunate, but that's because it takes a lot of courage to actually change. So first evolution is, okay, let's go on the ground and find some food elsewhere because our food has disappeared. And that's the open banking phase. Open banking starts either with, okay, I have a non-discretionary project to comply with PSD2, so I'm going to put the budget on it and we're going to comply with the regulation. Or, oh, it's pretty cool to say that we're associated with fintech. Our shareholders are going to love it. So let's communicate about collaboration with fintechs. Oh, and by the way, what's this API stuff? What's going on? And then they discover And then they realize the temperature has raised for a reason. And then they start having an existentialism problem, which is, why am I here? What's my purpose as a bank? Why am I irrelevant? If you stay like this, yeah. Or do I want to find a new purpose in this environment? It's a really tough spot to be in, and we had some testimonies already today about this, being in this spot. But you don't need to stay in that spot. The first thing you need to do is to change the culture. As Romain was saying, the software is going to reflect your culture, the Conway principle. So we see banks getting into a phase of, let's change. And it's really hard. It takes 3-5 years. It takes buy-in from top management. It takes a lot of energy from middle management, a lot of change. Change is hard. Change doesn't need to be done unless you really need to morph into something new. And there are lots of areas to cover, most of them human areas. So pretty much you need to go from a top-down culture to a vision culture where you don't want to engage your employees. You give them reasons to be inspired. You don't act as a centralized organization. You have to distribute the senses and the listening to your teams so that you can be fit for your ecosystem. You don't think in terms of KPIs. You think in terms of OKRs. You don't think in terms of projects. You think in terms of products. You don't think closed, introverted. You think open, extroverted. You don't think about market share. You think about mind share for your audience, because the digital economy is based on the attention economy. You want to get and attract and keep the attention of your audience, and you will then indirectly monetize this by distributing a good service to them that allows you to make money. So that's a huge cultural change. And APIs help in this area because APIs force the organization to think outwards and provide a service which is scalable to the outer world, so that the internal systems need to adapt to service the outside world. And layers by layers, you can actually change your entire organization to become innovative, fast, and able to grab opportunities where they stand. You fly now. So you're not an eagle yet, you're just a cormorant. Let's have a look at the next stage, which is once you're ready with some agility, once you've learned to be fast, you can think about delivering a product that matters to the ecosystem. So you have to become purposeful. You have to nurture your users. You have to think about their financial fitness. You have to be fit with a site. And you have to design experiences for them. And you have to be agile. So this is a parenthesis, a kind of conversation I'd like to have with banks right now about how do I build an experience that matters with my customers. I'm going to go fast on it, but let's imagine I'm talking to a product manager at a bank, and he needs to design a journey for a young couple. So the challenge is to build an interesting experience out of something that's pretty complex. So typically data comes from a PFM like Plaid for grabbing their investment horizons and projects. You typically have data yourself in a database internally. You do your lead management with HubSpot. You send your emails with MailChimp. And you take care of your service with ServiceNow. And you have a mortgage rating with a mortgage API. And the reason why you would know whether that couple that declared that they wanted to buy an apartment is as a product that fit their need is thanks to an API, a third-party API called Zillow. So what you want to do is grab their data, put it in an API, which is a bank moments. That API is going to pull the Zillow API. You will enrich the data from Oracle The minute there is a match between what they want and what the market does, it's going to create an event. Before engaging the customer, you want to make sure there is no incident or complaint that's logged with that customer. If it is, then you have to prioritize them. Once they're taken care of, then you're going to create the lead and start the real engagement. So this is what you want to do as a product manager, and you want to do this at scale. It's hard. Even if the opportunity is huge, there is a huge risk of being locked in with multiple vendors, and that's where APIs help. And it's pretty complex in terms of low-level infrastructure, in terms of cloud, your APIs, their APIs. So you have to do all this in a secure fashion. So this helps, and some companies actually make progress towards that direction. So I'm just going to go around the globe. So this is in Indonesia, a new bank created by BTPN called Genius. I like the design, pretty simple, pretty cool, as cool as Stripe. You want to create an account. Another one that I like is Suncorp in Australia. They started to create a platform that actually comes with that experience of helping you navigate with insurance and real estate issues based on your life moments. Another one is Commerce Bank that started their API program pretty recently, but from the beginning started to integrate third-party APIs to create integrated moments for their customers. What I use is BNP Paribas. They've actually integrated with tons of partners in order to provide an experience that matter for the end client. And a rare case of data, they claim or they say or they know that they have 40% now of their business out of APIs. Think about it. That means that without a serious API program and success, they would have like half of the current revenue they have. So they would be in trouble, but now they're thriving thanks to APIs. And the last one in terms of data that I like is another Indonesian bank, Permata Bank. So they say that thanks to APIs, they were able to acquire 72% of their new accounts, and they've managed to grow by 68% thanks to that. It's huge. And they were doing it by getting loan origination and wealth management be done by third-party fintech. And they would be the ones servicing the journey of customers interested in a loan or wealth management discussion. They service them as a platform. It's amazing. Great numbers. All right. Now I'm going to talk about a cool experience. I went to Singapore. So this is the airport. So it looks like the 1990s. That's typical ATM. And then you get into the cab. Sorry for the quality of the pictures. But the only three options were Alipay, WeChat, and DBS. I'm like, whoa, that's different from Paris. And then I met with DBS and started to learn about their journey. They've been on their journey for 7 years. They've been into the agile methodology for all that long, thanks to the CEO who met with the founder of Alibaba early on and realized that he was in trouble. He's still stressed about it. For those who haven't visited it, their API portal is amazing. Arnaud, API Handyman, was telling me that he's using them for his own demo because it's very well built, which is surprising from a large institution, but is a result of this cultural change. So go there, DBS developers, and look at the stock went from $7 to $27 over 10 years. I don't know of many other banks that are in that situation. And Piyush Gupta is a guy to follow. He said that he was positively surprised by the fact that he could thrive in an environment that he thought would be more competitive. But it's still his biggest nightmare is those tech giants coming in to eating his lunch. All right, so as a takeaway, think about where you stand or where your customers stand in the journey from discovering APIs, into becoming a platform that is facilitated through the exchange of business data through APIs. And thank you very much. Last thing, I recommend this expo you have at the Natural History Museum, where you're going to see this amazing picture. The guy actually waited 2 years to be able to take the picture for that moment.
Determined photographer. Eric, thank you very much.